Welcome to Champagne Problems Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Shaw. Join us as we explore mental and emotional well-being, physical optimization, and the journey to discovering your highest self. Champagne Problems is brought to you in proud partnership with Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social spirit. Bond Buzz is an award-winning alcohol-free functional beverage company creating adult drinks that are health-forward, all-natural, and uncompromising. They're on a mission to create a future where feeling good and getting buzzed exist in absolute harmony and not at the expense of your health. Their bold concoctions offer focus and energy while calming the nervous system for a night on the town or a productive afternoon. Bond Buzz uses only natural ingredients and a hyperfunctional blend of nootropics, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms to amplify the sensory experience. If you're looking for a drink to help you cool off after work or a drink to stimulate your mind and body without the harmful, icky hangovers, drink Bond Buzz for good days only. Kristen Bear, welcome to Champagne Problems.
Thank you, Robbie. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, it was easy. We're doing it in your hometown.
Hey, I mean, when you said you were going to be in Nashville, I'm like, yeah, that's boom. That's a done deal.
Oh no, I know it's funny. I mean, I'm on social media a good bit, and like I was just telling you before the camera started rolling, this podcast has evolved over time, but initially it was very much in the sober, the recovery, the alcohol-free life. And I came across Creative Sobriety, I don't even know how long ago, but for a good period of time, I followed it and looked at it. And then I saw that it was you that founded it. And then I found your personal page. And then I was like, I think this is someone that I would love to talk to. And you and I have been in contact for, 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then here we are.
Here we are.
Love it.
Yeah, no, it's always so cool. And I have so many people, that I've worked with and connected with where we followed each other online for years.
Yeah. And
it feels like you know them and you follow their work and then you finally get to collaborate and do something. And it's just very cool. So.
Yeah. So let's do, I always start with how the interview came about. We just covered that. Let's do some rapid fire. You up for some rapid fire?
Yeah, let's go, for sure.
Fire a few off.
Hit me.
Your most memorable live music concert?
Oh, wow.
I know, it's choose your favorite child.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to say something so lame right now.
Lame?
I don't know.
Couldn't be lame.
I'm going to go with one of the last ones I went to, which was I saw Mitski at the Ryman.
Ooh, lovely.
Early last year, and it was just beautiful. I love her, and that venue is so beautiful.
We're going tonight.
Oh, who are you seeing?
Well, it's the 100th year anniversary of the Opry, so they're doing
cool.
this series of events at the Ryman, and you never know who you're going to get, apparently.
Oh, that is very cool.
Yeah,
I hope you
night.
get some awesome people. I'm sure you will.
I know. My daughter loves Mitski. My wife loves Mitski. Nice and somber.
Oh, I love her. I saw something on TikTok that was like, you should, the musical artists you like most likely have the same moon sign as you. And Mitski and I are both Capricorn moons.
There you go.
So do with that what you will.
Makes perfect sense.
But maybe that makes sense. I don't know.
Tracks so far.
It tracks.
Let's see. What do I typically ask? These rapid fires change and switch, and I'm just trying to. It was funny. I had someone in here yesterday, and I asked them a question about food, and they couldn't be the furthest away from someone who likes food. And I was like,
What?
Nix this question. Let's do. If you could snap your fingers and be anywhere, where would that be?
Joshua Tree, California.
Mm-hmm.
I've
never been.
I love that place. It lights me up. It's like the most spiritual place I've ever been.
I hear that all the time. Why is that?
I don't know. It's just the colors in the landscape. It just does something to me. It's so inspiring. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love it. Oh, man, I got to get there. I hear about it all the time. But everybody eats mushrooms out there, right?
Oh, I don't know. Probably. Yeah.
That's what a lot of people do.
I don't know. I've been there when I wasn't sober, and I've been there since I've gotten sober.
Both fantastic.
Sober is much better.
Love it.
But it's just so quiet and peaceful, and I always get really inspired when I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I keep hearing that. All right, I'm in. So I'm going to do a food one with you.
Okay.
You eat, right?
Yes. I've been known to eat.
Yesterday's guest doesn't eat. What food can make you close your eyes and forget where you are?
Lasagna.
Yes. I love it.
I love Italian food.
I do too.
Pasta, sauce, cheese. Like, I'm just done.
Do you eat meat?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So real lasagna.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Not eggplant.
No. I mean, I can get down on, I can get down on eggplant, but no, I eat all the meats. Lasagna. Like, I'm a comfort food gal. Mm-hmm. I love Southern food too, you know, so like biscuits and gravy, shit like that.
Well, you're from Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I grew up in East Tennessee, like Appalachia hillbillies.
Yeah.
Very proud of that. That's not a knock.
As you should
yeah. be. So yeah, I love all food, but I have a sweet spot for Southern food.
Love it. Did your area get pretty affected by the hurricane?
By the hurricane? I would say it was about 45 minutes from like where my grandma and mama lives now. They had a pretty rough go, but it didn't affect them in like my hometown. Yeah. So, but it was really sad to see all the damage. Ugly. And that's still going on, you know, people aren't talking about. I know.
I mean, I'm, from Charlotte, spent my whole childhood in Western North Carolina. So Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina are about the same place. Yeah. Man, it is brutal.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking to see that because it's like growing up there, I've just been to all of those places and, that's my home and that's like my people. So I hate it. And I hate that, it didn't get the attention that it really deserved to. Yeah. So.
If you could know the answer to any question, what would you ask?
Why am I here? I'm figuring it out. Yeah. But it would be so much easier.
Nice to know, right?
It'd be so much easier if I could just be handed a manual, It's like
this but that would take away from the whole
this journey. This is your mission. Don't like stop fumbling around. Like this is what you're supposed to do. Get it done, Yeah. But I think that's part of the fun, right? Figuring it out. So
I think that's part, whether it's fun, I think it's part of
you have to choose to see it as fun or it's just.
Well, don't you think? All right, so let's go into that.
Yeah.
We're just gonna. So just FYI, these are not interviews. I do have questions, but like, let's just talk.
Yeah.
So let's go into purpose.
Yeah.
Because I love that topic, and my listeners are probably like, Jesus, here we go again on purpose. But I talk about it all the time because I'm in an age and a stage of my life where where what I'm doing, I would have never, ever predicted. Right. So
yeah, me too.
I mean, all the things I've done, all the, attempts to find my purpose have led to my purpose. That's the cool part of purpose is that it's not something that you just say and do.
Yeah.
It's something that grows organically.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so too, because I also would have never predicted, that I'm sitting here on a podcast talking about, sobriety and personal growth and like spiritual. I just, no. I think that if you're open to being surprised about what you're supposed to do here and not become too rigid about how it's supposed to happen for you, I think that's when it can really unfold in the most beautiful way. I think you got to be open to being surprised and being led and guided and not holding too tightly to like a version of that. Yeah. Or anything or anyone or any place. It's like, for me, I've been all over in my life. Honestly, I feel like I've lived 20 different lifetimes in my almost 40 years now. And all of those things have shaped me and built something within me that I use now in the work that I do. Yeah. Even if it seems like unrelated, like, no, it actually has been very purposeful.
It's a key puzzle piece.
It's a puzzle piece, the pain, the struggle, the challenge, and then all the good stuff too. It's like, it's like the soup of who you are and it has to simmer. And,
we've been things, remove a few things.
We've been simmering. We've been simmering for a while.
Crock pot.
Yeah.
That's great. I love the way you put that. Especially about the part about being open to it, because And I think there are people that do that naturally. I think there are people that don't do it. And then I think there are people that are kind of humbled into doing it.
Sure.
Like you're not in control.
Yeah.
And so many of us try to be in control.
Yeah.
Some more than others. And you know, I am far from like a control freak. I mean, I am in certain areas, but there are people that are like, you know, very much personally and kind of physically and mentally, like I need to be in control. And it's like, those are the ones that are going to get just slammed
to the ground in reality.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. No, I've kind of always been a real, for better or worse, you know,
Sure.
go with the flow person. Like
Right.
I have ideas and things that I want and I can go after them and be hard-headed about it. But I've also just kind of gone where the wind has taken me. And it hasn't always been a good place, you know,
Sure.
but like, I think that serves me now too, where I'm kind of just open. Like I just want to be useful. I want to be good at what I'm doing and I want to connect with people and do things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And so whatever comes up, if it feels right, like I'm all about it, you
Yeah.
know, like let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I look back at my life, which we tend to do at this age, and it's very much around all the bits and pieces starting to come to kind of convolute and make sense. Mm-hmm. Whereas during the paths and all the different things, it's like, what am I doing? I'm a sack of shit.
Yeah.
I'm the only person in the world that has no idea what he wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, all that. And it's just not true. And there are people that do the same thing throughout most of their lives, and they are a kind of specific person.
Yeah.
And they won't be the kind of person that at 40, 45, 48, 49, all of a sudden picks and chooses and pulls from all these different experiences and then has this like wealth of wisdom and experience to thrive in a different area.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is really cool. And I hope that I can constantly reinvent myself. I get bored. Like I just don't want to spend my whole life doing one thing. I have so many interests and curiosities, and I think that's always really led me. And I continue to do that. I mean, in ways I envy people who have chosen like this really like structured path and like they've never veered too far off. You know, I mean, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, God, I wish I, worked at a
pool and hot
like
tub.
fucking bank or something, you know, because like there's a lot of uncertainty and you just kind of have to have a stomach for it. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't trade it either. I think I like the idea that I don't know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next year. I choose to live like that. You know, it's not for everybody. But yeah.
So that's a great segue. Let's go back into some of your journey, things that you did. I mean, obviously, we're going to get to a point of sobriety and what you've done since then. But let's go before that, and not necessarily into the I don't even know if you had a rock bottom, but whatever that experience was that led you to sobriety, even prior to that. Let's get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Well, you know, I grew up in a really small town in East Tennessee, and from a really young age I just had such a like desire, curiosity for the world. I wanted to get out of the place that I came. I wanted to go and live in big cities. I wanted to travel. I wanted to meet all kinds of people, and I was very interested in the creative life. You know, I loved movies and books, and I wanted to live in that world so badly. And so when I was 18 years old, I moved to LA with my best friend from high school, like a couple of idiots.
Oh,
and, fumbled around out there for a year or whatever. We wanted to be actors, and we were going to go to, do all these things. And it wasn't the right time for that because I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
What year would that be?
That would have been 2003 to 2004 ish. Yeah. And that was just a crazy experience. And I learned a whole lot very quickly about the world and how it's not just, you don't just show up and say, hey,
like it was in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm Kristen Carol Jean. I would like to be an actor. Okay, where do I sign?
Come on in.
Yeah, where do I sign up? It was a humbling experience. I mean, I say it was a humbling experience. I didn't learn my lesson quite then, but, I got out of my small town and I saw some things I had never seen before. And
Yeah, I imagine you did.
I did. And, I kind of put that dream on a shelf for a little bit. I started going to school. I started trying to do like a very like normal thing. And then as fate would have it, when I was about 23 years old, I got scouted by this modeling agent. And I was living in Memphis at the time. And I started traveling for that. And I started working full time as a fashion model. And I lived in Chicago for 6 months. And then I moved to New York. And I was in New York for 3.5 years.
Wow.
And so I got to the big city and I did that whole thing. I went to Asia for a little bit and I was very much living that life. And it was great. It was an incredible experience.
I can't imagine.
It was an incredible experience. But, I think, and not to jump too far ahead to the sobriety thing, but I think it's important to note, like, through all these different phases of my life, drinking, it was just kind of this, it was always the thing that sort of followed me. And when I was in a really good place and being, having success in my career and really happy with where I was, it would sort of be at bay. But then in a city like New York, it's very easy to kind of disappear around the corner and, sink into a bar seat somewhere by yourself. So like when things would start going bad or I had like a relationship issue, which I had a lot of those, I would find myself, drinking, and sort of this longing to disappear didn't go away. Even when I got to a place where I felt like, oh, I finally have, this thing that I'm good at and this thing that like people are validating me for. So I think New York in a lot of ways was a huge turning point for that for me. So kind of living my dream there and doing that whole thing. But on the backside of that, realizing that I had a long way to go with how I actually felt about myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you say turning point,
yeah.
expand.
So I think some of the wheels started coming off towards the end of my time there. I think.
And when, sorry, give me the time frame on that.
So I moved to New York in the end of 2013.
Okay.
Yes. And I came back to Nashville in 2016.
Okay. So three-ish years in New York.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
I was there for 3 years and it chewed me up and spit me out.
Yeah. And, I always had this, I just had this vision. I wanted to live in New York. I romanticized the hell out of the life that I would have there. And then I was in this industry that was incredibly strange, incredibly demanding and superficial and like oppressive in a lot of ways. It was, I had to be constantly aware of what I was eating and what I was wearing and how I was being perceived. And it was just all a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways it gave me confidence and I felt strong and, self-assured and things like that. But on the other side of that, it was just this constant, self-criticism that I was dealing with, and then the people around you. And
it's conditional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I started to maybe not fully realize, but some of the wheels started coming off where I was having these low lows mentally.
Yeah.
And I would just sort of get really stuck in my head and started to realize that I hadn't dealt with a lot of the stuff from my past, and the self-esteem really wasn't there that I thought. And, that would kind of set the stage for the next few years.
Okay.
But it would take a while to get to a place where I actually changed anything.
Yeah. All right. So, excuse me. I want to dig a little bit into that industry.
Yeah.
Because nobody really knows it. We can look at it and we can theorize and we can assume and we can stereotype and all that, but you were in it. Mm-hmm. And there's acting and then there's modeling.
Yeah.
They're a little different. There's a lot of similarities, obviously, but the modeling piece, wow, it just sounds so tough. It sounds, everything you just said, the kind of superficiality, and yes, you look beautiful, and we all feel great when we look good. But how deep does that confidence and that self-esteem go when it's based on looks?
Yeah, not very deep.
Not very deep.
You know, it becomes this weird thing that your value in that industry is all based on that.
On what
like
other people
your
are
literal
seeing.
value, like what you're getting paid and what jobs you're booking. And so, yeah, it really does a number on your psyche.
Yeah.
Especially if you are a person who is very sensitive and very deep feeling and also has a desire to say a lot of things and express yourself in a lot of ways. You know, it can feel very oppressive and like you're just, someone's missing the big picture of you constantly.
Like, don't talk. This is not about
Yeah. And that's not to say, look, there were amazing people that I worked with. And I was very lucky in a lot of sense where, you know, I didn't have any sort of nightmare experiences. There were certainly assholes and, you know, bad days and people saying horrible things. Yeah, douchebags, finance bros, you name all of that. But, you know, I was also a little bit older than most girls when they moved to New York. I moved to New York at like 27, 28. So, you know, it was like I was more mature. I had a little bit thicker skin, but I mean, you know, you can't really prepare for that if you haven't lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to counter some of that, you had some, you were talking about kind of the mental health space and how you would go into these darker kind of lower areas. And would it typically be an event that would take you there, or was it just kind of wavy based on you and your internal kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think a big thing for me, my whole life has always been relationships and wanting so desperately to be loved by someone. So, you know, I think I didn't have a good grip on myself outside of a relationship. So when one would crash and burn, I would find myself reeling, you know. I didn't have enough of a foundation in myself to not let it completely derail me.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, the ups and downs of that. And the nature of that job, you know, is also very up and down. So, you know, you can go 2 months without a job. You don't know how you're going to pay your rent. And then 1 month is like, boom, you know, you book
Fiji.
Yeah. And you're like, damn, everything's great. Oh my God. Like I'm killing it, you know, but then 3 weeks later, you're back on the other side of that. So it was a lot of up and down. And I didn't know how to regulate myself. I mean, I just didn't have the coping mechanisms. It was like, reach for a drink. Like it was just, you know, I hadn't developed like healthy coping strategies. I exercised, I ran, I did hot yoga, and I did all those things so like I could keep it sort of like together. But yeah, I would just get sent off the deep end by, you know, a relationship, a breakup, losing a job. I just dealt with this very low level anxiety all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to find like that peace within myself. I was always just like for it.
Do you think, you know, when you say things like, and I say the same thing, I didn't have the coping skills. How do you get those coping skills?
You sit alone in a quiet place and you actually listen to yourself. You actually figure out what it is that you need. And you will never figure that out if you are constantly quietening that voice with stuff or people. So until you know what it is that you're missing and what it is that you're coping with, you know, you're not going to be able to. And I spent a lot of time just burying shit down.
Oh yeah.
You know, I went through a lot of traumatic things when I was pretty young, 18 to 20.
Anything you want to share?
Yeah, well, sure. I got into a pretty abusive relationship, and it lasted about 3 years. And I didn't tell anyone. I think there were, I think my family had maybe an inkling, but I was very ashamed of that situation. And so I kept all of the details and all of the truth of that experience to myself for years. And I was also too young, I think, to know what to do with it,
Was this in LA?
I met this person in LA, and then it continued after. And it became a real source of shame more than anything. I was embarrassed. I couldn't believe, I thought I was a smart person. I thought I was a strong person. I thought I was a good person. And how does a strong, smart, good person end up with a fucking monster, and stay there and, put up with that or, subject themselves to that. And so the reaction that I had at 20, 21 years old was like, we're just going to forget that this happened. No one's going to know about this. Nobody has to know. You're done with it. It doesn't have to be part of your life and your story. But the truth is, it is.
Yeah, it happened.
And like we were talking about earlier, we don't get to choose our story necessarily, right, but we can choose how we tell it, and that's become...
If we tell it.
If we
right?
tell it. Yeah, but we can choose if we tell it. And for a long time, I chose not to tell it, and it made me very sick.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, I think I think that people drink for a number of reasons, but I think a big one is a trauma response.
Sure.
I think especially when things happen and we're young and we just don't have another way, and we don't know how to talk about it yet. Maybe we don't have people around us who are willing to hear it, so we just condition ourselves to keep it in.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's brutal. But it's fascinating to kind of make the connections between, and we can start to segue into, the heavy drinking and the addiction kind of side of things, because, you and I, we relate on that. I didn't have, I don't know. People talk about trauma and, there's big T and little T, you hear all that. And I think there was some big T in my life. I had a couple of deaths, a car crash, not me, but my brother. And, some of those kind of things that would probably be considered a little bit more capitalized T. But then the small T's, those are all just based on who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like two people can watch a squirrel get run over, and one of them, it just breaks their heart, and the other one keeps on walking. Right. And like you said, you're a very sensitive person. I was too, or am. And so there was probably a lot of trauma in my life that I didn't like to think about. I didn't like to process. I didn't like to cope with. And so I just did everything I could to keep my mind over here when there was a lot over here that had not really been brought up here. So, and God, I keep banging this thing. So when I talk about like coping skills, we do often say, I didn't have the coping skills to deal with that. And my immediate question was, how do you get those coping skills? Well, you have to live through shit you got to cope with.
Yeah.
And you got to get to a point where you don't have a choice but to cope.
Yeah.
Right. And there are people that can continue through life, just suppress, and they might die of cancer at 55. Right. It just, it comes out in some way at some point. I think we're lucky in that we were able to, hit some level of bottom that woke us up and taught us how to deal with life.
Yeah.
So let's move into that part of your life.
Yeah.
You come back from New York. You moved back to, did you move here?
I moved from New York to Nashville, and then I went back to LA for a second time.
Nice.
And I was there for the 2 years before I got sober, the 2 years before the pandemic. So that was the finale. I had the grand finale in LA.
I had mine in San Diego.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Warm weather, makes
it.
It's
a great place to fizzle out.
Crash out. At least it's sunny outside and 75.
You trying to be an actress? Or you are an actress,
I am
right?
an actress, yeah. So when I was in New York, I kind of slowly started auditioning for commercials and, music videos and small parts in TV and film. And
awesome.
So I kind of was able to start doing that more, which I love. And I have had a great agent here in Nashville for 15 years. And I still work with him, and he's great. And I audition all the time, and I do stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, but when I went to LA, I was definitely focusing more on acting, and I started going to classes and trying to get really serious about it. And I got a job working in a restaurant in West Hollywood, very much living that actor life. And, it became very difficult for me to accept. It became really difficult for me to accept where I was in my life somewhere in 2019. I got hit with just a really, really bad bout of anxiety, depression, which I had dealt with a lot in my 20s. I had been medicated and, in therapy and all that kind of stuff, and thought I'd kind of gotten over that hump. But it snuck back up in 2019. And it was a combination of a lot of things. It was, the acting stuff wasn't getting where I wanted it to get. I was feeling very stuck. I hated working in this restaurant. I hated the hours. I hated smelling like fucking Thai food every night, And I was going out drinking more often with the people I worked with. And I would find myself just exhausted and coming home and drinking a bottle of wine. And I was in a long-term relationship at the time, which was crashing out in 2019. And that was really heartbreaking to me. And I couldn't get a grip on anything. Everything felt like it was just gonna fall apart. And I had pretty near mental breakdown, fall of 2019. And I went back to see a psychiatrist. So I had never had a doctor look at me and tell me that alcohol and drugs make your anxiety worse. No one had ever told me that.
Jesus.
And now, which seems crazy.
Yes.
Right? It seems absolutely crazy, but no one had ever told me that. And this doctor, bless his heart, he was the first person to say that. Now, I did not listen to him at that moment. I did not take that advice. Right. He said, you would experience a significant reduction in your anxiety if you quit drinking and smoking weed.
Stop doing depressants.
And I was like, got it. Thank you. Yeah. But I did not.
Try everything else.
Sure. I didn't know at that point in my life it was a possibility to be a sober person. I just didn't know. I didn't know anyone doing it that looked cool. I certainly didn't think it would be any fun. So that wasn't an option for me. Mm-hmm. So I sort of went on my way, but that stuck in my head. And a couple months later, I had a niece that was born. And, I started having this weird contrast of joy in my life and very dark thoughts in my life. And I was miserable. There was a point in, January of 2020 that I was driving across a bridge, and I thought, what if I just
jerk the wheel?
Yeah, what if I just went off?
Yeah. Because
I don't even like myself. Mm-hmm. I don't see a redeeming quality in myself. You're miserable. You're not bringing anything positive into the world. You're not even an artist anymore. What do you even do? Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, that's scary. Mm-hmm. And that thought just sort of haunted me. And I wasn't drinking necessarily a ton then. I had a couple big nights here and there, hangover, but for the most part, it was just real sad energy around my drinking. Drinking alone, drinking every night, a bottle, half a bottle of wine, whatever it was, and everything in my life was sort of like glazed in this dullness, grayness. I realized I had my future, which wasn't there. I didn't have the same excitement about anything, and I just didn't like myself, period. I didn't like myself. I didn't value myself. And one morning I woke up in February, and I wasn't particularly hungover. I had gone to have a couple of beers the night before, I think, with my sister, but I woke up and there was this not loud booming, but very, very clear voice in my head that just said, "You're done." And what I heard with "you're done" is you have a choice. You can continue this lifestyle, this path, what you're doing now, or you can reach your full potential. There is no third choice. And I just said, okay, like in that moment. And I never had a drink again. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because I know people struggle to get sober and have ups and downs with it and relapses and all that. But it just wasn't that way for me.
Yeah.
It was an acceptance and an immediate like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? What's next? Yeah.
God, those stories they never get old.
Yeah.
They're the best. They're the worst and the best.
Yeah.
Because I remember that feeling. And I know you said, not everybody has that experience, but if they get sober, that's the point that's reached. Often that point is a hard point to reach, and they may try lots of other things that leads up to that final, it's this or that, you know? And I remember that vividly. It was, for me, it was one beer, one sip means jail or death. And that wasn't like an AAA kind of phrase that somebody put in my head. It was something that I had learned to believe because I had tried so many different ways to kind of figure it out. And one sip, and to this day, 19 years later, I have not had a sip of alcohol because I know in my head, I know it to be fact that one sip puts me in jail or kills me.
Yeah.
And it would. It absolutely would. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I will go get an 8-ball.
Yeah.
And I will go to a hotel room and I will do all of it.
All of it.
Until I either die or get in a car or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting place to be. It's very freeing.
It is.
It's that surrender.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very freeing. A lot of people, talk to me, message me, and they're trying to work out a way where they can be better at life and get healthier and get more focused, but still drink occasionally. There's always this mental gymnastics people are trying to do and trying to moderate, and I'm like, look, you're missing the whole point here.
Right.
You're making this so hard because you're holding on to this thing that you've given so much meaning to in your life where you don't even realize the space it's taking up. You don't even realize what you're missing out on because you're devoting so much energy and so much brain power to controlling this thing that is just controlling you, Like freedom is none. Like that's what I see. I see none as complete freedom.
Yeah.
I am in no way, restricted by this thing anymore. It just has no place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and when you think about why people hold on to it, and I think that we still brush it over like it's interwoven into our society, and it's traditional, and it's ritualistic, and all those things are true. But when you get to a point of it creating so much turmoil and consequence and problem in your life, and walls to going the direction you're trying to get, why then do you still hold on to it? Because it's not the ritual that you're holding on to. It's not the this is what we do. No, you're holding on to what it does for you.
Yes.
And it's that thing in your head, that experience, that life, that trauma, those things that you don't want to think about still.
Yeah.
Because that's all it's there for. That's the only reason that we can't stop it, is in those moments, and we're fearful of what the future will bring. And I often think about it like this, like 19 years. And now I haven't been sober the whole time. Weed has always crept back into my life. Now I'm close to 3 years now of complete sobriety, and I will be for a long time now. But I often hear people say, if this were to happen, how would I not drink? Or and it could be bad or good. A lot of times it's good.
Yeah.
If I won, or if I earned or won $50 million, like, can I have a glass of champagne then? It's like,
yeah,
I live a life, you live a life where it doesn't matter what happens. I could lose my family. I could lose my brother. I could win $50 million. I don't get to put anything in my system as a result.
Yeah.
I got to be there and live it and feel it.
Yeah. I think too, it's because I've had that conversation, especially in the first couple of years getting sober, of, you're always kind of just like, okay, what's the thing? What's the thing that's going to come and hit me like a sledgehammer and shake this whole thing up?
Yeah.
What's going to be the thing that finally I break and we're back to square one? And you fear that in a way until it happens. And I was almost 2 years sober. My mom suddenly died. And I remember being in the depth of that moment and that grief. I had no desire to drink.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was just bear witness to this woman and her life and what it meant for me and my sisters and my family, and I just want to be present. I couldn't imagine escaping that. It would have been a disservice to myself and to her and to everyone around me. And you just don't know until you're there how you're going to react. And it was just one of those moments where I realized, man, like, there is nothing I cannot do sober.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I want to do drunk ever again. Right. It just solidified everything for me and lit this new purpose and fire under me, of like, oh my God, I got to make this worth something too now, this pain. And it's all purposeful. But yeah, I think, you learn by doing, and you grow that self-reliance by showing up sober and doing it, even if it's the first time you go on a date without drinking, or the first time you do that one thing that you always did with your friends and drank. It's every single time you do those things, or you face some horrific tragedy in your life, you're just sort of like affirming to yourself that you can do it, and it just builds this fortitude. Yeah.
When you often hear the fear of those things is exponentially worse than the actual thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's the fear of, it could be, for a period of time, it was walking down the street. Right? I couldn't leave my house without slugging some vodka.
Seriously.
So fearful of everything.
Yeah.
And then take it all the way up to the big things, losing a parent or a loved one. And it's like, we're built, we can do these things.
Yeah.
We can all do hard things, and we're just riddled with fear around them.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to acknowledge that, the pressure that we put on society with alcohol, that's bought and paid messaging from the alcohol industry. And I I want people to understand, like, you know, that you've been conditioned to think you need alcohol in your life. That's not a coincidence, and you're not the only one susceptible to it. Yeah. And depending on what you've been through in your life, you are going to be more susceptible to that. And, you know, it's something I talk about a lot, and something that is going to be a huge conversation this year, particularly as we see maybe new alcohol guidelines coming out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a big picture. And so I like to talk about substance abuse as, you know, in a holistic way. It's not one answer for everybody.
God, no.
You know, it's not a one word definition of why you drink so much.
Right. Now, is it genetic?
You know, it's like
God, it's
yeah, I think
one
we're all
little part.
like, we're all individuals, and we're all very complex, and we've all had very layered, nuanced lives. And so the reasons you drink are going to be very complex and layered and nuanced. And the way you get sober is going to be very individual and nuanced. And so that's a conversation that I get really excited about.
Yeah. I do too. Because I often get that question, because everybody wants a simple answer.
Yeah.
And every time.
Yeah, so what happened? How bad did it get? You know?
Or it's always like avoidance. It's like, now why is it that way? So I can avoid that happening to me, or
it's just
whatever.
Comparing to you, right? You can watch it in their eyes. You're like, well, I'm not that. I never did that.
That's right.
So I'm fine.
Oh God, I know. And people get so annoyed with my answer. I'm like, I don't have an answer. Like, it's just a million things. It's like trying to define someone's brain.
It really is. Yeah. I even struggle with it still now. It's like, you know, yeah, I have a pretty good grasp on what went wrong, but it's very complex, and I'll spend the rest of my life working that out with myself, you know?
Yeah. Well, you can always point to someone who's been through worse that didn't do that.
Yeah.
That didn't fall into the depths of addiction. And it's like, well, why didn't they? Their father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Quick story.
Yeah.
Because my father was a severe alcoholic and died of it. And I was sober, or I had stopped drinking when he died. I was probably halfway through. I mean, I think I had been free of alcohol and hard drugs for maybe 12 years, 13 years by the time he died. And I always said that when he died, I was going to toast him. And because that was what he and I did together. We drank together. That was our relationship. And so when he died, I was going to break my sobriety, and I was going to have a scotch and toast my dad. And he died, and we went through the funeral, and we went through all the things, and I never thought about it. And I remember, like, 3 weeks later, I went, oh shit, I never did that toast. It's like,
And what did you feel about it then? Like, were you glad that you, like, were you?
100%. No, that's what I'm saying. Like you, it was like, there was no, that would have been the worst.
Like the opposite of what you would have wanted to feel in that moment. Yeah.
Totally.
It's crazy how you just, when you're in that kind of grief and in that kind of like existential just vortex that is losing a parent, you know, that's the last thing that you're thinking about is how can I, you know, you're trying to figure out what it all means. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to feel it. I was like, this is one of these life-defining, soul-defining moments. And I don't know, I just wanted to swim in it. I wanted to soak it up for what it was worth, the horrific side of it and the beautiful side of it, you know?
Yeah. Mine was a little different in that he was under the influence of alcohol, a real asshole, you know? And so and he had almost died like 15 times.
Oh God. Yeah.
So it was a lot of relief.
Sure.
It was a lot less sadness. The sadness came 12 years prior.
When you were young?
When he was in intensive care because of alcohol. I was still...
Well, that in itself got to create another layer of sadness because...
It was.
You know.
It was a little different. It was like... Because for years we had just been hoping he died.
Yeah.
So it was a weird... So talk about little T trauma, like all those years of all those things, like all the times that he almost died and left and did all the shit that alcoholics do, like that was the hard stuff.
Like you had grieved this person
tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he actually died, it was like, oh, God,
Sure.
finally.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
But
almost
still.
like, how am I supposed to
Still
feel
conflicting
right now?
because you're
Yeah.
not supposed to be happy when a parent dies.
Yeah.
All right. We got a few more minutes.
Okay.
Let's dive into creative sobriety.
Yeah.
Tell us, let's go all in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So I decided when I quit drinking, I knew I wanted to do it my way. I wanted it to be modern and fresh and new and cool, and I just wasn't going to accept, some outdated version of it. I just thought that doesn't feel right. Where are the people? Where are the people talking about this shit in a way that I can get excited about, inspired by? And so I went scouring the internets. And wow, I'm
Sebastian Maniscalco,
showing
the
my
internets.
age over here. I got on the internets and I found some people on there. But then I went on Instagram and I started searching hashtags and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like all these people just talking about this stuff. So I wasn't comfortable following them from my personal page because I hadn't told anybody, oh, I'm sober, guys. Like, I don't even know what that means,
Yeah.
So I created Creative Sobriety. Initially, it was just kind of like a stalker account. Like, I went on Creative Sobriety and started following all these people so I could inundate myself with that content, right? And connect with other sober people and see what was going on in that world. And a few, weeks into that, I would post random quotes and thoughts, and I would never show my face. And it was just kind of a creative outlet. It was an accountability source because I would get on there every single day and say, I'm going to put something on here. And, and then people started connecting with me and resonating with some of the stuff I was saying and sending me messages. And I thought, this feels really good. I'm going to keep doing this. And then I think 4 or 5 months in, it was right after my birthday that summer, I just thought, you know what? Like, I think this is who I am now. Like, I think I'm proud of the fact that I'm sober and I want everyone to know. So I posted a whole thing on my personal page, like, hey, I'm sober. Yep, that's what I am. And I started this page, Creative Sobriety. And then I just it grew from there. And it just became this place where it was the one consistent thing and the one place that I could show up every day and just be honest, because sober people are so fucking honest. And I needed that in my life.
Yeah.
And I could be honest there and people appreciated it and I wasn't judged and we could find humor in the dark stuff and we could talk about the really sad stuff. And it was just, I became addicted in a way to that community and just like, holy crap, just the fact that I can show up authentically is something I think I realized I'd been missing my whole life. And so I've just poured everything into that and it's become my life's passion and work at this point, to share and be honest about what I've been through, because I really believe that that is the way that other people get free, is when they see someone that they can relate to speaking openly about the struggle that they're going through. It's like a permission slip to them.
Yeah.
And it's a ripple effect because then they will do the same. And I think that there's nothing that feels more important to me than that.
Man.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So and you had a podcast around it, right?
Yeah, we did. I've done about, I think 20 something episodes on a podcast. And I love that. I love talking about this stuff. I can do it every single day. And I started a private community platform. So we have a community that's kind of off of Instagram. And we do. Oh, you did? Okay, good. We do weekly Zoom meetings and we connect and people can put on there where they're from and hopefully find someone in their city. And, I post events as they come up and things like that for people who want to meet other people who aren't drinking or whatever. And yeah, I have a vision for the future, which is that it's very normal to be a non-drinker and it's celebrated and it's not questioned and people are happier and more creative and more authentic, and we kind of stop trying to escape really the best parts of ourselves, which are the story that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, the things that are unique to us, that good or bad are ours and deserve their full moment. And I think we deserve to be around people who are willing to talk about those things and don't require us to shapeshift and, you know, filter and veil ourselves. I want to be around people who are vulnerable and open and just here to live, because honestly, it's a real short time, you know, and I don't want to give any of that time to alcohol or drugs anymore.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Is there anything else we want to tell all the people listening?
Listen, people.
Oh, yeah, all you people. They're like, let's go to the Instagram. Let's go to the website and sign up. Like, let's just tell everybody how and where to do that.
Yeah, please follow me on Instagram at Creative Sobriety. You know, send me a message. I literally try to answer every single message I get.
That's how we got here.
Yeah, I love talking about all of this. There's just so many different ways that we can connect. You know, go to my website, creativesobriety.co.
And you can get there through the Instagram.
Yes, everything's linked there. I write on Substack. Please read my Substack. I've been writing a lot and will continue writing a lot about sort of the political landscape and the industry landscape as we move through some big changes in 2025. So if you're interested in that world, you know, please follow there and talk to me about it. I want to hear your thoughts.
Cancer labels.
Yeah, there's every 5 years we get new dietary guidelines, and those include alcohol consumption. So 2025, the end of this year, we will have updated guidelines, and there's a lot of pressure right now to update the alcohol consumption guidelines. Yeah. And that's coming from many different directions. And yesterday we had an announcement from the Surgeon General, which was not on my bingo card for the year, but it's going to add a lot of fuel to the fire. So I'm passionate about just being transparent, you know, and making sure people understand what alcohol is and can you know, do in their lives. And it's not just messaging we're getting from the people who make money off alcohol. That's important to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Kristen Carol Jean Bear.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate all you do and your openness and sharing all that you've experienced and what led you to where you are, and it's very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for sharing more about your story, and you know, I can understand now why you're like such a compassionate person, and you know, it's cool. It's very cool to have these conversations. So thank you very much.
All right, there we go. It's a wrap.
Sweet.
Yeah.